Um, I'm Otz Maimon. I'm Israeli. Can recognize the name and the accent. Now based in Sunnyvale, Yahoo chief architect. Visiting here, I don't know, 3-4 times a year, and really interested and excited about Yahoo collaboration with the whole IT community in Israel. So this is part of it. We're glad to have you here. So I guess I embarrassed myself enough. I don't want to steal the stage. If you guys have questions later after PPSN, I'm happy to try to answer them. I'd be curious to come back to what's after the cloud in your mind, because mine is cloudy, rainy sometimes.
Very good. So we're all queued up. PPSN, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. That was a fantastic talk by Rick. He's definitely a master inventor, and you'll see that I'm not a master inventor. I'm a very, I think I'm 1/100th of master inventor. So he has 400, you say? 600. So I'm like at 4 or 5. So cool. Let me first introduce myself and talk a little bit about what I do at Yahoo and what I have done, and kind of set up this talk. I currently work as the VP of Engineering at Yahoo for the Yahoo Cloud Services, and I'll talk briefly about what those cloud services are. Before that, I worked at Bell Labs in New Jersey, Murray Hill, for about 10 years. I started all the way from being a member of technical staff all the way up to a technical manager just before I moved to Yahoo, and I joined Yahoo in the engineering group, and started off as a architect and a director, and now I'm a VP of engineering. And given this background, I have some valuable insights that I thought I should share with the audience. And a lot of the insights, interestingly, are so similar to the insights that Rick presented. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I have a computer science degree. I am an engineer at heart, and I love building stuff, and that's one of the reasons that I moved from being in the research organization of a big research company called Lucent and Bell Labs, and I moved into Yahoo, and I don't regret a day that I did that, and it's been a fantastic experience, but there are things that we do in research that I feel that are very valuable, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this talk. So the talk is all about how research has changed and how innovation has changed in the modern era, and what I have seen in my career from Bell Labs to Yahoo. Yahoo has a cloud organization, and like I said, I run some of it, and cloud has become very synonymous, but cloud has also influenced a lot of the innovations that have happened, and hopefully this will bring that out. Interestingly, a lot of the insights that Rick presented, I have indirectly also reached in this presentation. So a lot of people talk about research, a lot of people talk about science. I think innovation is a very easy thing to define. Innovation is doing something new, and engineering is also something very easy to define. Engineering is building something, right? But research and science are used very confusingly. At least for me, it's very confusing. Some people say they are researchers, some people say they are scientists, some people say they are data scientists, some people say they are research scientists. So it gets very confusing, and it's one of the things that I struggle with day to day. And the importance of science is in observing events, observing phenomena, and explaining them. And at least in my mind, and research is about going and looking at phenomenon and declaring what the principles are behind it. So it's a very subtle thing, and I always struggle with it. And I think a lot of the things that are happening in the research environment today are influenced by this confusion. So let's first look at how computing and how the problems have changed. So initially when computing started, we had, it was mostly influenced by defense and academia, right? We started off with with building big computers, mainframes and really big computers that would sit in this room. But over time, computing has evolved. And then these computing machines were started used by businesses, by banks. Then we started using them to send emails to each other. And over the decades, we moved from using computers and computing to buy stuff, to consume things, to exchange information with our friends. And finally now, it looks like computers are going to be there everywhere. I guess we just got a $10,000 computer yesterday. So that's interesting, right? Your watch is now going to have a computer that is equivalent to something that probably was there in the 1960s, right? So computing has changed. And as you can see, the problems have also become very complex. As computing has changed, the problems have become different. A lot of the research that was done, for example, in databases, was done in the 1960s and 1970s. But there is continuous evolution of these research principles over the decades. As you see, the number of database systems that were built right from the 1970s have continuously evolved. And in fact, it has become more and more confusing. You see that there are a lot of commercial databases, some of them like NoSQL databases or relational databases, analytical databases, and now they started calling them new SQL databases. And there are a lot of them that are open source databases. And why is this happening? And this is happening because the problems are continuously changing, and one single researched principle does not generically solve that problem. So people are picking niche solutions to solve niche problems. And they are always trying to make it highly optimized for their solution. And you can see that here. Another interesting thing that has happened, at least with database systems and storage, is that the scale has increased tremendously. For a person like me who started using email in the 1990s, you got 1 megabyte free in Yahoo Mail at that time, or Hotmail. In 2000s, Google came and said, you should take 1 gigabyte free, right? And now in 2010s, Yahoo comes back and says, maybe you should have unlimited storage or 1 terabyte free. So the scale, you can see, has also exploded, and much of it is due to Moore's law, but much of it is also due to the commoditization of software, right? The software has commoditized. You can see the number of databases today. And yeah, the Moore's law, that's what Moore's law is. So I just went and researched the number of database systems, and there is this company called 451 Research that publishes the database systems. And I'm going to spend the next 2 hours walking through each one of these words there. So now now this is the key thing here is, you have these problems and you have extremely niche solutions to these problems. And this is the state of affairs here. But this is good, this is not bad. So what has also changed is that the speed at which we do innovation has changed drastically. So here's the example. Now in Oracle, I just picked Oracle. I don't know how many of you use Oracle these days. Anybody? Oh, that's good, one guy. That's good. So Oracle, if you see, has evolved, and I just laid out the major releases over the last few decades. And the speed of innovation in Oracle has actually slowed down. The last release took them 7 years, from 2008 to 2013. Quiz for the one guy who knows Oracle. Do you know what I, G, and C stands for? Internet, grid, and cloud. So they think that by putting this alphabet, they can launch it. So anyway, so the another example is, and you know that in this time, the world has changed, okay? Another example, if you look at hardware and technology, other technology, this evolution is also pretty interesting. If you look at wireless technology, some of the wireless technology is taking something like 12 years from conception to rollout. And interestingly, our first smartphone, which was the BlackBerry, happened in 2002 or 2003 roughly. And by the time LTE was out in 2010, BlackBerry is dead, okay? So you can just imagine that when 5G happens, that is from today in 7 to 8 years from now, it's highly likely that many of the players that are there today will not be there. And not only that, the consumption pattern and the usage would have completely changed in that 8 years. Most likely, we would be, this is my guess, obviously I can't, Yahoo doesn't guarantee this. Most likely we are going to be using self-driving cars in that time, most likely, right? Or we'll be doing virtual reality, which will completely change the way we use 5G. That's the most likely outcome that's going to happen. But if you look at AWS, which is a new entrant into this market, and this is a very interesting slide here, if you take 2013, they are doing innovation at the speed of one release or one major feature a day, a working day, okay? And if you take 2014, they are doing 2 a day. And I don't know what they're going to be doing in 2015. So this is the speed of innovation that cloud and service-oriented models are producing. And AWS is not just a database system, right? What they're doing is they're building all the infrastructure that you use to run your business or your enterprise. And that's the speed of innovation that they're doing. So just to plug Yahoo and what we do at Yahoo, interestingly at Yahoo, we are also trying to move at the speed, correct? We cannot be in a speed in the internet where we are making releases every 7 years. So just as an example, we decided that we would build something like a new ad format and a new ad system, and we decided to do it in 45 days. And this is, we are talking about millions of dollars of revenue, almost, and we have publicly said this, that we will be crossing Twitter in revenues with this new ad system. And we started to build this system and finished it in 43 days, though we had set a goal of 45 days. So this is the speed of innovation that we need in the market. So it's not just about building new things, but it's also about understanding what is not working in our systems and building, reinventing the stuff. And that is also a cycle that is getting shorter and shorter. And that is getting shorter because we are taking existing systems, we are looking at what works in a service-oriented model, so there is some feedback loop. You can look at what is working from a service that you run. You can look at all the market forces that are happening. So for example, in a storage system, there's new types of storage, right? You have SSDs that come in, or PCIe-based flashes that comes in. There is a new set of RAM that comes in. So these market forces make you to rethink what you're doing and change that. And this is also an important part of our virtuous cycle. So interestingly, just before all the service-oriented architecture, the cloud, everything happened, Yahoo had a key-value distributed storage platform. It was built in 1997. And this platform was probably the world's first key-value distributed storage platform. Before Amazon existed, before Google existed, all these players existed. We never publicly spoke about it, but there were a bunch of innovations that happened in the cloud with elasticity, with operational capabilities for automatically failing based on hard disks or consistency or things like that. But these things we discovered over time. This was the feedback that we got. And around the time that the cloud became big, we decided to build a new key value storage platform, adopting all the market forces or changes in the market and the advances that were happening in science. And we built a new platform. Now, the same platform took us 10 years when we realized and we built it. But we had to then do the next version of that in a much shorter time. So what we did then is the next time we had to do something, we built it in a year's time. And this is the kind of reinvention that we need to do. In fact, even a year is too long in the internet these days. And as you saw, AWS is building stuff, every day they're launching 2 or 3 things. So this is another key lesson that I think we have learned both at Yahoo and in the internet age. The other key thing that even Rick talked about is open research, correct? So if you look at traditional research, the government was the big supporter of traditional research, right? DARPA was the thing that produced something like the GPS or the internet. In fact, Bell Labs and Lucent and AT&T were monopolies. They were funded by the government. And any research that was done at Bell Labs was free to the whole US at least, I know that. So things like Unix, things like C++, things like lasers, things like transistor were all invented there. Being in Israel, a lot of the cool ideas that happen in Israel are coming out of the IDF that you guys go to and learn there, and you come out. Though it is not really funding it, it does encourage the ideas that happen there to become products or become reality, correct? Incubation, correct? So there is a fundamental power that happened in traditional research where governments were actually helping push research out and make it into reality. What does modern research look like? If you think about research in the internet age, what is happening now is a lot of the companies that are in the internet world are actually building new things, and they are also giving away the stuff as innovations to the market. If you look at Google, though they did not give away the code that they wrote for MapReduce, but a lot of the thought and the leadership that they provided for inventing a concept like MapReduce and implementing it for search was actually adopted and made into open source solutions like Hadoop, correct? Then you have companies like Facebook that is optimizing their networks, it is optimizing their hardware, and it is making it into open platforms. Yahoo also is a big player in this, where Yahoo spends a lot of energy and time in taking the stuff that we invent and putting it out in open source and making it into open research platforms. And this is how innovation is happening on the internet age. And why is this working? This is working because, as Rick said, openness is leading to open internet, and open connectivity is leading to a lot of collaboration. And there are a lot of shared problems, and there are not enough resources to solve these shared problems. Yahoo does not have a big workforce, nor does Facebook. If you think about it, these companies put 2 or 3 people, but there are 2 or 3 people across the world, across multiple companies that form into a virtual team that innovate on these platforms. So this is kind of the innovation model that is growing, and Rick pointed this out in his previous presentation as well. Finally, what is happening with traditional research? I worked at Bell Labs. We were a traditional research organization. And the traditional research organization have a bunch of objectives, and I'll come to that in the next slide. And a lot of the companies, I went and visited the websites of a lot of these companies, and they all say that they do research. Some say they do research, some say labs, some say science. But all of these are contributing in some way to the innovation that is happening in the internet age. But the fundamental philosophy has changed. And the change is that we have moved from the traditional model to a different model that I would call avant-garde, or the modern model. And the traditional model was that we would have a lot of long-term research. We would do research for 10 years, 15 years. In fact, when I was at Bell Labs, the people who found out that the universe was expanding got the Nobel Prize, correct? So they were actually building radio telescopes to see if the universe is expanding. And I don't think companies do that today, other than the government, right? So that kind of fundamental research in the industry is more or less disappeared. I'll come back to that. So I wouldn't call that research, but they are trying to be more and more practical, right? Sorry, she asked about space. So she's asking about SpaceX and, I don't know, Virgin, Universal, or whatever they call it. Yeah, so, but they are more and more taking the stuff that was done and then packaging it in some senses, right? Sorry. So interestingly, I went to Google research and looked at what they said on their, I tried to look for a job. So when I tried to do that, they said there is a blurry line between research and production. Product engineering, they called it. And they said it is not treated as a separate activity. Product engineering. And at Yahoo, what we do is we have a good mixture of the two worlds. And what we try to do is we encourage our research scientists to go and publish and innovate. At the same time, they are very, very tightly integrated with the product engineering groups. Now, a lot of companies, in fact, I would argue that IBM and HP Labs all fall in that category, but I would say more and more people are falling in the middle category. And I purposefully put the self-driving car here, and it's a very interesting example. They very clearly said that they have a short-term view. You would have 6 to 12 months to work on a project. This is what Google research said. And interestingly, a self-driving car did not exist 5 years ago. I remember Stanford, it was funded by DARPA for a while, and it was actually presented at one of the Yahoo conferences. And the professor from Stanford came and talked about it. And at that time, he was not part of Google. And interestingly, the year after that, Google took it on. And in 5 years, I can see, I live pretty close to where Google is, and I can see at least 2 cars or 3 cars a week, which are self-driving cars on the street in 5 years. And yeah, we can call it short-term research. I think it is really short-term, in 5 years from nothing to actually having self-driving cars in the street. But it is some investment in long-term views of where technology and where the world is going to go. So my feeling is that a lot of the traditional research is gone, and it has pretty much disappeared. Obviously, the government, DARPA, NSF will be continuing to invest, but industrial research labs will not exist anymore. And more will be moving towards this highly, tightly integrated avant-garde research models. So in conclusion, these are the observations I have. This is just from my experience working at various places. And I thought this would be an interesting insight for folks who are dealing both with research and product innovation. And I will be open for questions now. Questions? Sure. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sorry. And I think when self-driving cars come out, they may severely lessen the need for parking spaces, because the cars can just drive around and there's no need for parking space. They can pick you up.
So
but people hire drivers today to drive them around and drop them off.
So that's an interesting thing. So what I was speaking when I was discussing it with some of my colleagues is, That's a very interesting observation. In fact, I think we will not have cars at all, and all the parking lots will be converted into buildings because we don't need to have parking lots. And I mean, Uber is that, right? I get down the stairs, and I press a button, and a car comes right to me, except that it's driven by somebody now. And in fact, Uber has already placed orders for 100 self-driving cars with Google. So it's most likely that nobody would have cars, and cars would be just going around. That's it.
Like they're going to take private buses.
Yes, yeah. It's pretty much heading in that direction. And you'll be searching a lot on Google when you're driving around. So that's. So that's also a very good question. So I come from a if you look up my profile, you'll see that I come from a very purist background on databases. I don't know how many people know about databases out here. Few. Okay, good. So you know about ACID and all the transactions and everything. So I had a lot of experience in query processing, query optimization, transactions, all that stuff. And that was my theoretical background, and I did research in that. And then I go to Yahoo, and in Yahoo there are lots and lots of use cases, and that's why I put that example there, where if you lose a transaction, it doesn't matter. It's not a bank, right? It's not, you're just, user likes. If you lose a like, it's not a big deal, right? If you lose a mail, it's bad, but if you lose a like, it's not a big deal. So there are various use cases, and there are certain use cases where NoSQLs work excellently, right? And that's why they built NoSQL, and that is where the niche solutions that I was talking about. In fact, like I said, I'm a purist, and I talk about ACID transactions and things like that. I talk about locking, and there are applications in Yahoo or in internet world where you don't need to take locks because you never have transactions hitting the same record or set of records ever. So you have this whole monolithic Oracle or SQL Server database where there is mutex and locks all over the place, and you cannot optimize that for a use case which does not need locks. You cannot take out the locks, correct? So you just saw the sample audience. So it seems like that. Yeah. 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 Any other questions?
What management techniques are used for when you develop? Are you using agile, design thinking, any other combinations?
So we do agile. We are all, at least in my group, Yahoo is a very flexible environment on what kind of methodology you use. Different groups do different things. Interestingly, I think projects that take a long time, I started off when I came to Yahoo, I was not an agile person. Agile developer, not a person. I think Amuts will know whether or not I'm agile. So I was very waterfallish. I did build a few systems that way, but over time I've realized that even when you're building very complex platforms that are very big, and my group runs like 30,000, 40,000 servers around the world, you have to build your systems very agile. And the reason is, again, the same thing is that the world is changing very fast. And anything that takes 3 months to 6 months to deliver, the world has changed in that time. And we have to be, the releases that my group does now happen every week or every 2 weeks. That's the cadence at which we do. So we do long features which take time, but doesn't mean that we don't release software into production. My group is all services group. In fact, the group that is in Tel Aviv, they do video CDN and video streaming. So all these groups do features and roll out features every 1 to 2 weeks, and they're always continuously deploying. So that's the model that we follow. Does that answer the question? Okay. I don't think there is a wrong. There's any answer other than saying it's bad. Sorry. So the question. Oh, of course. Yahoo is. Okay. So the question is about crime and cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. 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 I don't think we do that. We don't block whole of China or whole of Afghanistan. So I think the answer that Rick gave is pretty much a very similar answer that we do. We have a pretty strong, we care about our end users' privacy, and we care about our end users' data. And we have very strong protections to protect those users from being targeted. Obviously, like all systems and like all companies, we do have holes, and we continuously find holes and fill and fix them, right? Protecting our systems, we have quite sophisticated defense systems outside the company where our edge runs. For example, the group that like I said, I run the video CDN, I run the edge that Yahoo has, and we run our own edge. And we have pretty sophisticated systems on the edge to protect against intrusion. At the same time, inside the data centers, also we have very sophisticated mechanisms by which we can protect our systems from being attacked or penetrated. They do happen. We don't talk about it very often unless we have a pretty malicious attack, but we have defenses inside the systems to protect it. We do not. I don't think we block users unless obviously countries block, users from coming to. Yeah. Amos can answer the question.
I mean, it's an interesting question. Cybercrime is one of these industries that went from a hobby. So if you go back 10, 15 years ago, it was high school kids trying to see where they can get in just so they can brag about it and get the girls, to a highly sophisticated sub-industry that actually generates a lot of money, and some of it is government sponsored. So we actually see a lot of sophistication going on where you have specialties of cyber crimes, and they are coordinated by some upper bodies, and attack vectors are moving from place to place, and it's a fascinating world. I won't go into all the details. I don't know all the details. But it does represent a situation where the attackers are using all the latest innovation, and there's no single form of attack, and any reasonable defense need to assume that you have to use all the possible defense mechanisms, and that something will break at any given time. So just like we think about resiliency, and we say some hardware will fail if you operate at large enough scale, some hardware will always fail, some defense will always fail. Someone will get in, how you catch them as quickly as possible. So it's a combination of monitoring everything that you do in any given way, doing tons of data analytics, and doing it in a way that is as close to online learning, online training, to identify abnormal type of behaviors as quickly as possible and identify them as close as possible to where they happen, as opposed to get all the data back to some centralized system, run some kind of batch processing, and oh, something happened 2 days ago. By that time, they move laterally across the data center. So my assumption, I mean, you guys are in the Israeli high tech. I think there are probably, I don't know, 3-4 dozens of Israeli startups doing all kinds of security stuff. VCs are pouring tons of money, and lots of small companies. PayPal just bought a company here last week.
Fraud.
So this will keep on going for a while. And kind of, I don't think there's one solution. We can talk about specific technologies, but there's big money in it, and there's big government interest, and it will keep on going.
Sure.
Thank you. My question is about the process of diversification, amount of features and new languages that developer languages that come into our life every day, basically 400 plus of new APIs from Amazon just last year, versus commoditization of different other platforms that we see, basically Intel, AMD, single platform. This diversification cannot last forever. It is going up to, it is becoming to be a challenge to recruit talent. Because every company uses at least several dozens of new APIs, and they are already owed a year after. What do you think will happen in, let's say, 5 years from now?
5 years.
How much you're on the
5 years, I will not be driving my car. So, 5 years. Amutz, what do you think?
In 5 years, Rick is gone. I was hoping Watson will write software for us.
Yeah.
There's actually some renaissance for programming languages. I don't know how long will it last. If you look at programming languages, the kind of those ups and downs to new language introduction, things like that. But there are lots of languages that have marginal value. They're very similar to each other, and you kind of look at them and say, do we need all of them? I'm not sure. It's interesting to see. From talent perspective, I don't know, who asked the question? Are you a recruiter, or are you just looking for talent?
He's an engineer.
Because if you're looking for a job, then talk to our guys at Yahoo. You know, it's how many people here are programming more than, I don't know, 5 languages over their careers? Few. How many people over 3? I mean, I think ultimately a good engineer should be able to learn a new language. Language is a tool.
Correct.
It's not a destination. If you have a better tool, then excellent. I don't think you should look, when you look for talent, for people that are really kind of anchored in one language. And the same goes if you go to the innovation story. If you're really rooted in one technology and that's all you did all your life, then the likelihood that you'll do something different grows smaller the longer your career is. So database technology is a general field, but if you can't figure out, you know, SQL, NoSQL, kind of new SQL and different transaction models, and kind of your utility in a fast-changing world goes down. So look for people that can learn.
Yeah.
That would be my guess.
So to try a different answer also from an API perspective, there is this Gartner, I forget the curve that they have where, you know, there is a big hype and followed by disillusionment and, you know, stability and, you know, some winners. I think cloud and this service-oriented architecture and services is going through the hype. I think there is going to be a disillusionment. I don't know whether it is going to be, I think it will probably in the next 5 years we will see that, right? Where there will be consolidation, right? Fewer and fewer people, people get fed up with this and they will say, I'll pick one thing and I'll stick with it. And I think we are going through a massive hype in infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, The cloud is going through that hype, and I think that curve, I don't know when it is going to happen. I think that's where it will consolidate. So, thank you. Thank you.
So we got 2 for 1, which was unprecedented. Thank you both to our Yahoo execs.